Hi students, in this video we're going to continue looking at the transformation of graphs. Right, so after watching this video you should be able to sketch graphs of translated circles, exponentials and hyperbolas by identifying the key features of those graphs. So we're talking x and y intercepts if they exist. Note that for exponentials we won't be calculating x-intercepts yet, more on that in a future video. You'll be graphing the asymptotes and hyperbola of exponentials and hyperbolas, and you'll also need to plot the center and radius of a circle. Right, so the key things to recall going back to our previous video looking at transformations, the general equations and graphs of circles, exponentials, and rectangular hyperbolas. In particular, we'll need to make sure we remember the parameters h and k, and that they translate our graph. H translates horizontally and K translates vertically. Alright, so our first example is drawing a sketch of a circle. We can tell it's a circle because both our x term and our y terms are squared. Alright, looking at our graph here, we can see our h values is with our x term. So our h value is going to be the opposite sign to -5 because it's in brackets with our x term. So it's 5. Our k value, because it's in brackets with our y value, it's going to be the opposite sign as well, -4. And that tells us the center of our circle. The center of our circle is the coordinates hk. So the center of this circle we've got is going to be 5, -4. Looking at our graph here, 5, -4 is right here. So I'll label that as the center of our circle, 5, -4. Alright, and then now we just need to work out our intercepts. Before we do that, let's just state the radius. So our radius squared equals 25 in our formula, so the radius must be 5. Right. We can realize then that our y-intercept is actually just going to be 5 units to the left of our center. So if we've got x equals 5, 5 units to the left is over here. So our y-intercept is just the coordinates 0, -4. We could have also found our y-intercept by just subbing in x equals 0 and rearranging. For our x-intercept, we'll substitute in y equals 0. So we'll have x minus 5 squared. Sorry, that should be an x, not a y. X minus 5 squared plus y is 0, so 0 plus 4 will just be 4 squared equals 25. Subtracting 4 squared, or 16, from both sides, x minus 5 squared equals 9, and continuing to rearrange, x minus 5 equals plus or minus square root 9, which is plus or minus 3. So remember, when we square root, we have to include our plus and minus sign, so x must be 5 plus or minus 3. So that means x equals 5 minus 3, which is 2, or 5 plus 3, which is 8. So we've got two intercepts, 2, 0, and 8, 0. So plotting those, there's 2, 0, 2, 0. Here we've got 8, 0, and our y-intercept we're going to label, which is 0, -4. And with all our key points, we can then draw our circle. Going through all of those points with a radius of 5 up, 5 down, 5 to the right, and 5 to the left. And there's our circle. Alright, for our second one, we're going to draw an exponential. And again, label all our key features. So for our exponentials, we do not need our x-intercept at this point. We're just going to do y-intercept and our asymptotes. So looking at our equation here, we've got our exponential because x is in the power. We've got a h value of 1 because it's with our x term. And technically it's in brackets. We just don't write them in. So it changes sign from -1 to +1. K is not in brackets, it's on its own. Not with y, so that one stays the way it is, -3. Now because we have an exponential, our asymptote is the value y equals k. So therefore our asymptote is y equals -3, which will be down here. Drawing that in, we've got our asymptote going across there. Alright, we've got our y-intercept, which means x equals 0. Substituting that in, we'll have y equals 2 to the power of 0 minus 1, which is -1, minus 3. Now 2 to the -1 is just 1 over 2, minus 3, half minus 3 is -2.5. So our y-intercept is 0, -2.5. 0 and -2.5, which will be there. Alright, from there, and we can probably label those two. So we've got y equals -3, and here we'll have 0, -2.5. Alright, now for our graphs it's good to have 2 points. So what we're going to do for our second point is just sub in x equals 0. Alright, so sub in, not x equals 0, we'll sub in x equals 1. So our y value, subbing in x equals 1 is 2 to the power of 0. 1 minus 1 is 0, minus 3, 2 to the 0, that's just 1. 1 minus 3 is -2. So our other point will be 1, -2. 1, -2 will be this point here. Oops. And then we can just draw our graph that goes between those points and label 1, -2 as our last point here. And there's a sketch of our exponential. Alright, so now we have to sketch ourselves a hyperbola. We can tell this is a hyperbola because x is in our denominator here. Now our h value is going to be the opposite sign because it's with x there in brackets, even though we don't write them in. So instead of being +2, h will be -2. K is on its own, so it will keep the same sign. It's not in brackets, it will stay positive. Alright, for our rectangular hyperbola, our asymptotes have the values of h and k. So our x asymptote will be, our vertical asymptote will be x equals -2, and our horizontal asymptote will be y equals +3. So drawing those in, our first asymptote will be at x equals, that should be -2, not -3, which is right here. And then +3 is our horizontal asymptote. So drawing those in, we've got x equals -2 and y equals 3. And now we can find our intercepts. So we'll do our y-intercept first. So y-intercept means x equals 0. So subbing that in, y equals -1 over. If we sub in x equals 0, that'll be x plus 2. So 0 plus 2, which is just 2, plus 3, -half plus 3 is positive 2.5. So our y-intercept is 0, 2.5, which is right here. So I'll write in there 0, 2.5. Right, now for our x-intercept. Okay, we'll have to use y equals 0 for that. Y equals -1 over x plus 2 plus 3. But we don't need y this time. We're substituting in y equals 0, and we're going to rearrange that. So -3 equals -1 over x plus 2. We can divide both of those by -1, so the negatives cancel. And what I'm going to do is just flip those fractions over. So instead of being 3 over 1, I'll flip it so it's 1/3 equals x plus 2. Then rearranging that, 1/3 minus 2 equals x, which equals 1/3 minus 6/3, which equals 5/3, or negative 1.6 recurring. Alright, so negative 1.6 recurring, that'll be about here. And so we can label that point as negative 5/3, 0. And then with those points, we can draw the branches of our hyperbola in. And there's the sketch of our hyperbola. Right after watching this video, you should be able to sketch graphs of translated exponentials and hyperbolas by identifying key features of intercepts, centers, radii, and asymptotes.